Star Trek will not be presented tonight, so that we may bring you the following special program.
Word Balloon is brought to you by the League of Word Balloon Listeners. Nana Visitor, welcome to Word Balloon. As I told you off the air, this is such a thrill for me because I'm a longtime fan of your work, beyond Kira, but certainly an indelible mark on me as a fan, watching you on Deep Space Nine. Tremendous performance. So congratulations on that and everything you've done before and since.
Thank you so much, John. I appreciate that.
I'm excited for your book coming out in October.
Oh, you know what? I just got handed it this weekend. I've got to show it to you because
Please.
it's like, what? Look at this.
Wow.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
There it is. Something I never thought. Strangely enough, I wanted to be, when I was 17, I got into Princeton and I didn't end up going. This will make parents everywhere very upset. It certainly made my parents upset for a moment. But I got into Princeton. I wanted to be a writer. I got into a chorus and I just didn't stop working in the business.
Well, again, I think your career shows maybe that you made the right move, but I'm glad you're finally getting to scratch that itch with this
Yeah.
book. Tell people about the book. People might already know about it, but yeah, give us a capsule of what we can expect.
So it's called Open a Channel, and it's about the women of Star Trek behind the scenes, as many women who, this was all done during COVID, so who could give me an interview. I tried to get everybody in the book. It was 1,000 pages taken down to 300. But
Wow.
what it is, it's about the women of Star Trek and the decades that they found themselves in and what it was like for them in that decade to work as a woman, to work and live as a woman. But it's also about the fact that each show inspired people to have a bigger room to imagine themselves in. For my character, emotions. For people who never thought women could be engineers, B'Elanna Torres. Or even single mothers. That was a problem. I talked to one young man who said that Gates McFadden's character made such a difference to him because it normalized a single mother, having a single mother as a parent. So in all these ways, when Star Trek envisions the future, we start getting people to live that future. So it's also a book about Hollywood.
Yeah, I can imagine. And certainly some positive and negative stories have come out, I think, over the years. I always felt bad the way Terry Farrell was kind of dismissed, or things came to a head and she had to walk away from the show. And it was such, although we got Nicole DeBoer and I think she was wonderful, but that aside, your dynamic with Terry, I think, as buddies, was great and kind of refreshing. I mean, you had Marion Rhoda, I suppose, in the 70s, but really, like, it was really great to see you guys as work friends and her pulling you out of your rigid kind of shell and trying to experiment. But truly, I think you both rubbed against each other so well.
And in the 90s, to have two women who are friends who don't only talk about men in their lives was really unusual. And, you know, we both got to experience, we were aliens, but I know for me, it was the most human character I've ever played. So just taking away all the cultural things that were in the 90s, which happened once we put it in the future. And once you put a little device on my nose, I was allowed to be angry at the commander. I was able to have appetites. It was for me, I had never experienced anything like that professionally before.
Appreciated that, absolutely. And again, I know that people since and watch it in reruns now, like you said, it only inspires them with what the two of you did on screen. But you know, there were so many facets to Kira, and it must have been exciting because, and I want to start with the idea of coming off of the Cardassian occupation. And, you know, there's, depending on which side you're on, there are freedom fighters and there are terrorists. And obviously, to the Cardassians, you're a terrorist. And I wondered if there were any real world applications as you were finding the character that you thought about or read about in terms of freedom fighters that found themselves in that kind of struggle.
From thousands of years to current day, all over the place. But what I was most interested in is an entity who has purpose and ethics, and we didn't have a name for it then, but post-traumatic stress disorder, and the psychology of her being able to feel safe enough to trust the people she was working with, to have an arc of, instead of just being angry, which of course, as we all know, is a huge defense mechanism and a protective device, to be political and to be present in the moment and watch someone's eyes. I mean, Kai Wynn, Kira had to learn in order to deal with her. She couldn't respond with anger. That was taken away. Now what?
Understood. My God, again, another great relationship that was only more complicated because, as we saw as viewers, as terrible and power hungry as Kai Wynn was, you understand some of her motivations and sympathize because she too was dealing with the fact that she was, you know, with an occupied force and had to do what she had to survive.
That's right. The lovely shades of gray that that kind of prepare us for the real world. Storytelling is great for that.
And truly among the best writers in genre fiction on DS9. Yeah, feel free.
Oh
Go ahead.
my God. Oh my God. Let me tell you, these people were remarkable, are remarkable. I'm close with Ira Stephen Bear. I do believe he was the keeper of my character, but all of them. And as we see, Ron D. Moore goes on to just create show after show that I'm addicted to. And I can feel, and I can say this without being condescending because I know him all these years. I'm so damn proud of him. So proud.
Understood. Yeah, again, a lot of these men and women are showrunners of their own. Man, I have been waiting for years. Melissa Snodgrass, I know, is such an important part of George R. R. Martin's Wild Cards, and I know they've been developing it for TV for years. And it's like, please let it happen. She's such a
Yeah.
great writer.
And she's such a great woman. I got to interview her, and she was very forthcoming, very honest, really fascinating. And, you know, that was one of the interesting things that I found out for the book. There was a woman slot back in the day. Once that was filled, there are no other women. But Ira Stephen Bear was, again, that's one reason I'm, not only from my history, but from listening to all the other writers that I interviewed say, Ira mentored me. Ira let me in. And that's what we all need. We all need good mentorship.
Indeed. No, it's again, the I think the examples that the people that led the writers, the show only got better. I mean, and
Yeah.
also, you know, now you rewatch the first season of Deep Space Nine, and I mean, there was so much going on that as a viewer, it's like, all right, now I got to learn about the Bajorans more, and now I got to understand their religious dynamic, and again, the burden of post traumatic stress. Absolutely, I mean, just
Yeah.
all of this stuff, and the idea that it was great to contrast Roddenberry's vision of one Earth. We all get along here on Earth, but I mean, sometimes obviously you need conflict for a good story,
It's
and the
how we
conflict came
get,
from the yes.
it's how we get to his world. Put us all together on a space station, which what else is this but a huge space station, and figure it out. So much diversity, so many different, to me, it was a missing link that showed us why we need to get there and how we get there. We sit down and we stay.
And again, your relationship with Avery as Cisco, that starts off antagonistic. He is deemed by the prophets as the emissary. So now Jesus is your is
Yes.
your captain.
How do you deal with that?
Well, and truly, we watch the if not conflict, certainly the inner struggle of Kira coming
Yeah,
to terms with that, and even accepting it quicker than Cisco did.
yeah.
And there were just those great moments of, again, you adhering to the Bajoran religion. Have you heard from religious people about the way Bajor and religion was depicted in Deep Space Nine?
I do. I do all the time. All different religions, they all will say, that's my story, which is why I take it in a humanistic way, because it is a human story.
Understood, absolutely. And again, um, we really needed to understand all the chess pieces before it came together for us.
Yeah.
And really, man, right at the end of the first season, when Kai Wynn is objecting to Keiko's school, and you get that religion versus, the secular, or not, I forget which is secular, non-secular. My dictionary's betraying me. But yeah, just, you
Yes,
know, that conflict that now obviously is such a part of American society, church and school.
right.
So yeah, again, it's such an interesting dynamic to play. Tell me about also, you had a couple romantic interests on the show. You had Vedic Bareil, and then you had your former freedom fighter partner and stuff, Jakar, right? Jakar.
They were such great actors, Duncan and Philip. But I had an issue with how hunky they were. It struck me as a very obvious choice. Uh,
Okay.
and it always felt uncomfortable to me, which is why when they put me together with Odo, I had to think about it, because at first I went, oh no, this is a 90s trope. I don't want that. It's best friends and they fall in love. But actually, she fell in love with a spirit rather than a body. And that always struck me as who Kira would love.
I can appreciate that. Absolutely. The inner self. Definitely. And man, again, we had, Renee's unrequited love for seasons, and, yeah, we slowly saw and watched that break down. And really, even beginnings of you guys finally getting together wasn't really that smooth. And I
No.
loved during Dax's wedding that or the night before, that you guys are in the closet talking to each other. And it's great that it was off screen, because it really lets us all imagine what you guys probably talked about. Or God, that Children of Time episode was so beautiful. And
Remind
man,
me,
what's that?
remind me, Children of Time, 'cause I don't
Where you
always
go to
know
the
the title.
It's all good. When you go to the planet and you discover that you go through some sort of time barrier, and you're dead on the planet, but everyone else has been there, and there are generations of people beyond your crew, and Odo is still there, and now, however many years later, is comfortable enough to profess his love to you. And just your whole, how do I process this? Plus, I'm dead. I mean, it was so, I can't imagine trying to play what you had to reacting to Renee.
Our writers were so good. They were so good. We got to be in an actor's Disneyland doing these scripts. That's how I feel about it. It's everything I want acting to be. I got to do.
Were you surprised when you first auditioned for the role that it was a
Yeah.
woman's role?
I actually called my manager, because it was Major Kira and it was the first scene with the commander. And she was obviously angry and, this isn't going to work and all this stuff. And I thought Major Kira was a man's name. And I said, I think they made a mistake calling me in on this. I think it's a man's role. And I said, no, they want a woman. And I was like, what? I wanted that role more than I've ever wanted anything.
Outstanding. That's really terrific. Did you ever speak to, and I don't know how much Michelle Forbes does conventions, but obviously, initially for Deep Space Nine, the thought was let's have Ensign Rowe. Michelle
Yeah.
wasn't interested, but they obviously wanted to stay with the Bajor story and stuff. So have you ever spoke to her about it?
When I met her was in front of Paramount on the picket lines when we
Oh,
were
sure.
striking.
Okay.
And it was like, this should have happened years ago. We immediately went out to lunch. We've seen each other since. I don't know why it, other than she doesn't do conventions that much. But yeah, what she said, and of course, I didn't watch her when they sent me her to say this is what a Bajoran is. I didn't watch because I didn't want to do a copy.
Sure.
But for the book, I watched her performance, and she taught everyone that the way to ignite Picard is to have a fire. And she was fire. She was amazing. She was so good in that role.
That's great. That's great. It was fun watching you when you really were pregnant, and also Kira was pregnant, and just that interesting way they put it in that you were carrying the O'Brien's baby. And then again, this very weird dynamic between you, Miles, and Keiko, and also the nervous friction. And maybe you thought of it as a trope, but I really was like, man, these two are getting really close when he's rubbing your feet and giving you back rubs.
Yeah, again, a very human thing to happen, but I didn't find out again until I was doing interviews that Ira Stephen Bear's wife was standing there when he got the phone call. Uh-oh, Nana's pregnant. And what are they going to do about it? And she said she came up with it immediately. And
Oh, wow.
she saved me almost a year of having to hide behind things, which was a great freedom to have.
I can appreciate that, definitely. Also, man, you really got to stretch and a lot of your talents. God, when you perform Fever in His Way, great episode. And I'm curious about that. Well, I'll save the other question, but yeah, tell me that how great was that to get the opportunity to kind of sing and sway, if not dance,
It's,
on the episode.
the intendant, Lola, all of it was such a gift. I come from a Broadway background, so they knew that I sang. And I remember Ira said, I'm thinking of you singing The Way You Wear Your Hat, that song.
Oh, sure.
And that seemed very tame and like a nice love. I wanted it to be hot between Odo and me. So I said, how about Fever? And he went, yep, let me check it out.
Wow.
Yeah.
Was
Yeah.
there, and I don't know how it is, and again, maybe this is an Ira question more than you, but was it tough to secure the rights to the song as far as, do you know?
That I don't know, but they did
Okay.
it.
Yeah, that was amazing. All right, and then my follow-up obviously is Jimmy Darren, and I know that Ira is such a fan. And yeah, tell me, because truly, listen, I mean, I used to watch reruns of the Time Tunnel and the Gidget movies when I was a kid. And TJ Hooker, I'm like, yeah, all right, Jimmy Den, whatever. For me, I mean, my God, Vic Fontaine was just so great. And I'm a big fan of that Great American Songbook era of crooners like Sinatra and Tony Bennett. And Jimmy has just really slipped in. And I know, he was younger, obviously, but in that way, kind of in that way that Bobby Darin was able to kind of slip in and even as a young man, do those kinds of songs.
I'm telling you, he has the best stories I have ever heard. The best. And somehow I believe all of them from him. I do.
That's great. I asked Armin. I spoke to Armin on Monday, and I asked this question. And believe me, I know how busy you guys are, and also that you're inundated with Star Trek. But I kind of like that in the novels, the trajectory of Kira after that final episode.
What
And
happens?
you're a Vedic,
I'm
and
a
you embrace the religion, and you really become this woman of religion and everything. And still, they find ways of giving you action to do. But I thought that was terrific.
very
And yeah,
interesting.
did you ever think about where the character was after that last episode?
I always thought that she was still on the station. I thought she would remain running the station and be a mentor to Jake and to keep everything alive. That secretly, those were the best years of her life. She finally had something like a family, and that she would protect all of that. That was my feeling.
Understood. Well, and also, God, the Visitor, the great Tony Todd episode, and we get a glimpse of that post final years, and in a different way. But yeah, kind of
Yeah.
Kira being the rock there for Jake. And man, that last scene in
Kills
not
me.
in well, and also Visitor, but also in your last scene of the
Of the whole
series.
show.
Yeah,
Kills me.
man, and it's yeah. Oof. I'm
Yep.
I'm misting up right now. That was
Yep.
great, man.
Yep. It
Ooh.
was.
So,
I'm
and
telling you,
did you?
our writers.
Well, again, the evidence is there for us to watch every week. I'm so glad you guys got to do the documentary too.
Yeah.
What we left behind, and it really, and I'm really glad too that truly, I was a fan from day one. I was, and it was a struggle in Chicago because it was on Sunday, late enough in Sunday afternoons that Cub games would interfere during the
Come
spring.
on. That's so unfair. But that's how they scheduled us all over the place. But that's just wrong. Come on. In Chicago?
Believe me, and it would drive me nuts because at the end of the previous week that wouldn't be interrupted, they'd have a crawl at the bottom. Watch Deep Space Nine at a special time, and man, my VCR, I think I broke two over the 7 years. Just keeping up with. All right, I can't miss this, especially during the final season. Isn't it interesting now that television is taking the blueprint of what you guys did in
Yep.
that second half of the final season, and that's normal television now.
That's normal television. And streaming it is the way to watch our show. I know so many young people who have seen it for the first time that way. And I just like, of course, this is great. How could anyone doubt? But if you missed episodes or you couldn't find it, it becomes over it's too hard.
Understood. The
Yeah.
what about the relationship with Armin, both on camera and off camera? Tell me about Quark and Armin.
Well, Armin is a consummate actor, and I just feel like, we're swimming in the same pool always. We have similar ideas about acting and discipline and what it takes and what you arrive with. So on screen, on camera, it was a huge pleasure. We've maintained our relationship to this day, as most of us have. We're all pretty tight. Texting with Terry earlier today.
Oh, that's crazy. That's fantastic.
Oh yeah.
Um,
Oh yeah.
well, and I know that conventions and cruises and those kinds of things are a big part of your all of your lives, and it's great that not only your own cast, but also getting to meet so many other of the other cast members. Walter and George are the last two of the original series. Well,
Yep.
Shatner, of course. Excuse me, of course, Shatner. But yeah, like how much did you get to meet the people from the original series and hang out with them?
Walter and I have this great kidding relationship. And when we see each other at conventions, it's pretty much I love the guy. George, I get to see not quite as often, but it's always wonderful. And I love he and his husband. Bill, I see. And he's always great to me. So but he comes in and out very quickly. The rest of us hang. We go to the bar and talk and dinner and, let's go see this over here in this city. If we're in Europe, we have outings. So it really is a very bonding thing. And with people, especially in something like Terrificon, with people from other genres, which is really fun when that happens. Really, really fun. One of my dearest friends, I met at he was voiceover at conventions. He was famous for voiceovers, and we met there. So it's a fun way to work.
I wanted to ask you about voiceovers in general. Are you impacted by the gaming side of the SAG strike that's still unfortunately going on right now?
Yeah, pretty much, but there are some exempt, I don't know how that works, but there are some exempt projects out there. So
Okay. What are your thoughts on AI in general? And yeah,
I
how it's
don't like
impacting.
that writers are called a person and that we're not. That's my biggest objection, that an actor isn't a person. I've talked to people who are deep into AI, and they've convinced me, look, there are ways to benefit from it, even as an actor, if you use these tools. There's no stopping it.
Yeah.
But I wish an actor was a person.
Of course. No, I'm with you on that. Well, as I told you, I'm a broadcaster, and it's impacted our world as well. A lot of
Yeah.
voiceover voice tracks and DJ jobs are being replaced with AI voices. So yeah, I can
And
sympathize.
you can tell, excuse
I
me.
agree.
You can totally tell.
I so agree, Nana. And honestly, I really think ultimately that's going to be the problem that the studios will discover, because it's lowering the product. And
Yeah.
I think subconsciously, I mean, even as it gets better, um, there's just going to be something missing. It's just like in the comic book movies, we're all getting tired of the Act 3 CGI battle. And I
Yeah.
have friends that do write these movies and television shows, and I tell them, look, as a layman, my only advice is you got to find a different way to tell an Act 3, and it can't just be CGI monster versus superhero, because we've seen that trick for a long time now, and we're getting kind
That's
of
right.
bored. So yeah, I don't know. Do you watch? Are you a Marvel addict, girl? That's all right. Not at all. Don't worry. No judgment, enough. I
Yeah,
swear.
no, I'm not.
That's all right. Well, and listen, again, I think it limits the product. I mean, everything has to be a spectacle now to be in the theaters, and television really is eating the lunch of movie making and stuff. And it's interesting
Yes.
how, yeah, tell me, because again, you've seen it shift.
Oh, well, I remember going, okay, don't want to swim in those waters for several reasons, film, when I was 18. And I went, I'm focusing on TV. And there was a limited amount of us who did it. And it was fun because it was guerrilla acting. It was fast and quick. You had to be very disciplined in order to not spend a lot of their money, messing up. You
Certainly.
didn't get a lot of takes. And we all kind of made a middle class living in television back then, in the 70s, 80s, 90s. And you could not find a film actor who would want to do a TV show. Now it's all flipped. What also has flipped is science fiction. Science fiction is now the cool kids club. And I certainly saw it interviewing my book. The people who watch Star Trek are astronauts, engineers, astrophysicists, all the people that we rely on, and politicians, all the people that we rely on for their brains. And they all went, well, I was inspired by Star Trek, which is so cool.
Yeah, understood. Um, I wanted to ask about your experience on Lower Decks. It was great to see you and Armin back, and felt very at home. Armin said he needed the teeth still in to play
Yes.
Quark,
Oh my
but
God. I can't imagine him doing that role without those teeth. That would be a hard sound to approximate. But it was amazing to drop back into Major Kira after all those years. And I love Mike McMahon and the group he gathered because truly, they're all huge Star Trek fans. You could not get all those Easter eggs or all that really affectionate humor without really loving the thing. So it felt like, oh, this is such a safe, great place to enter.
well, we're all as fans hoping that that would inspire as Lower Decks is winding down. And you know what? We keep hearing that there might be an audio. I know there was a podcast with Jerry Ryan and Michelle, who plays oh God, shame on me, from
Michelle
Picard.
Hurd? Michelle
Yes,
Hurd.
Michelle Hurd. Thank you,
Yes.
thank you. And that was great. We keep hearing there's going to be some sort of con series as a podcast. But man, I would love to see. First of all, I would love to see all of you on camera again, and please, good Lord, there's literally almost a dozen or two of you that it would be great to see what everyone is doing so many years later and stuff. But also even and again with your voiceover experience, the podcasting and stuff that you guys
Yeah.
could do an audio drama and do one that could have taken place during those 7 years or before or after and stuff. And yeah,
Podcast drama. I haven't thought about that, but that's a great idea. We have to get
there you
one of
go.
the writers interested in that.
I can appreciate that. Well, feel free to take it. There's a freebie for you. Um, God, again, I wish I had seen you in Chicago because I think it's so great that you got to do that fantastic musical. I mean, the musical,
Oh,
not the sing.
my
And
God.
tell me about the experience. Yeah.
There's just, listen, it's everything you would think it would be to be backstage on Broadway, listening to the Candor Ebb, yeah, da, 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 da. And you're like, oh my God, I get chills just doing that much of it. And the show, it's like you're shot out of a cannon and it goes for 90 minutes and it's smart and it's political and it's sexy and it uses older women. And Bob Fosse, of course, who I knew in
Yes.
my life, and Ryan King, who put me into the show, because Fosse wasn't around anymore, obviously.
Sure.
This iteration was her baby. It was everything you could think being in a Broadway show is.
That's great. And man, all right, you opened a vein. I got to go further into that. Tell me about Fosse and knowing Bob Fosse. I admire his films as much as what he did on Broadway and stuff. And I mean, even stuff like Lenny and other films, beyond the obvious of all that jazz and the like.
My father was his assistant and associate for 20 to
Wow.
25 years. So,
Wow.
and my father was a dancer choreographer. And
Yes.
I did an audition for Bob when I was probably 17 or 18. And John, you go up, the rehearsal halls then were grimy and awful and stunk of cigarette smoke because everyone
Sure.
smoked there.
Yeah,
Drank
yeah.
coffee and smoked. That's what dancers did. And I come into this rehearsal room and he's backlit like this. I mean, the typical Bob Fosse as we know it now. I didn't know it then, but that was emblazoned into my head. I can't remember how many hours we spent, but it was hours acting, dancing with him, talking
Wow.
to him. And he took a role that went to Anne Reinking, by the way. I did not get it, but he
Okay.
took my head in his hands and he said, and don't forget when this was rampant drug time in the business. Everyone did coke to do their, and not everyone, many people did coke because it helped their voices.
Interesting.
Yeah, oh, anyway, he took my head and he said, "You're not going to get this, but you'll have a career, but you must never start drugs. Do not start drugs." And
Wow.
because it was the great Bob Fosse, I never tried drugs once, not once. And anytime it was like around me or people in those days, you went to a party, there was a dish of cocaine. If it was a Hollywood party, there was a dish of cocaine.
Sure.
And I'd look at it and go, Bob Fosse told me not to. And that was enough for me. Never tried it.
Wow. That's
Nothing.
incredible. Was that for a chorus line, or was it
No,
something
it
else?
was for all that jazz.
Oh, it was for all that jazz. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow. Very
So
cool.
watching Anne, it's like, you betcha, Anne, that was your role. That was you.
Well, you got your moment. I'm so glad that Ann put you in Chicago.
Yeah.
Again, it was such a great surprise. And
Yeah.
and we're like, oh man, that's awesome. She's doing Roxy. That's amazing. Very cool.
And they came to me and I said no. And they came to me again and I said no. I haven't danced and sung in years. I was, 7 years on a series. I was out of shape. And they were like, just come. And oh my God, what they put me through. It was like Marine training to get into that show and get up to speed and on stage. It was brutal, but fantastic.
No, honestly, I have a boxing cover journalism background, and truly, that's like a fighter being asked to get back in the ring after being out for years. And I
Yeah,
can only imagine, and truly getting your muscle memory back, which should be instinctive. And I mean, that's when fighters lose it, it's because they have to think about every punch they throw, and that's when they got to quit.
exactly. Exactly. You can't go down to that subconscious place that knows faster than your conscious mind what to do. It's that flow state where you see it coming before it's even happening. You're in that state. That state takes a lot of training to get there. So yeah, it was, and they did it. They 8 hours a day. I don't know how long that was, but 8 hours a day of dancing and dancing and dancing, not do it again, do it again, do it again, until it started to get to that place. And also I built up my breath capacity to be able to
Sure.
do it.
Wow, that's great. I know Armin has written. Well, I should say, I guess Armin submitted an idea for an episode, and then they turned it into a novel. And Garrick Andrew, who's going to be at Terrificon with you guys next week.
I know, I'm so glad.
I can't wait to see all three of
Love
you.
Andy.
Absolutely, among the others as well, which I may as well drop while we're talking about for my podcast listeners and viewers. That's going to be Walter Koenig, and also Spock and Uhura from Strange New Worlds,
Yes.
Cecilia and Ethan.
Yes.
So yeah, I'm looking forward to meeting all of you and asking you questions on the panels. But had you ever wanted to do, as you said, writing the new book that you've got coming up, which is more of an oral history that you've compiled? But did you ever want to write about Kira and do a Kira story?
No, it never occurred to me. It never occurred to me. I felt like I was in collaboration with the writers creating her. So I felt already like it was living between us. But I'll tell you what was eye-opening was watching all the other Star Treks, because obviously I had to be able to write the book. And I didn't know how good all of it was.
Ha!
It's so good. It's so good. And I love Strange New Worlds, and Ethan and Celia, you're going to see how sweet both of them are. They're all really great people.
That's great to hear, and I do. I look forward to talking to all of them and about all of your experiences. I have to ask you about Waltz and
Yes.
oh God, and forgive me, Harris's last name, the wonderful character actor. that played the Cardassian.
Harris Yulin.
Harris Yulin, thank you. Man, again.
Duet. You mean Duet?
Oh, pardon me. I did mean Duet. Yes.
I
So
thought you
tell
were going
me.
to ask me about the vice presidential candidate. It's like, we're going to talk about, all right, I'm ready.
Hey, listen, I think we're both on the same side of that. We're all hoping. And we're all excited, I think, for that experience. But Harris Yulin and yes, Duet. And again, I can't think of a time that a woman gets to play that kind of one-on-one role. And truly, I really, and I'm a big Hollywood nerd and TV and movie nerd. I can't think of a performance where a woman gets to have that kind of angry back. Please, if you got one.
Silence of the Lambs, Jodie Foster.
Well, that's true. Shame on me. You're absolutely right. That's very true.
Yes. But on TV, where we're supposed to be likable and reasonable and not do anything that would offend anybody, especially in the 90s, no, unheard of. And Harris Yulin's performance, he is such a fine actor, but every time I just watched it for a podcast, they wanted me to come on and talk about Duet. So I just watched it, and damn, he gets me every time. I'm in tears every time, and I was in the scene with him, but it doesn't matter. He transports me to this person racked with remorse for what he was involved. Who can laugh and then go into crying like Harris Yulin? Nobody.
That's great. But again, your character and the somersaults inside that your brain must have been doing, because you've spent most of your life from childhood to right before taking the role at Deep Space Nine hating these people, and and not giving them any sort of sympathy because of what they did as a whole to your people. And then to discover that as much as you want this guy to be a key evil person, that it's not. It's just this foot soldier kind of Cardassian that again is racked with remorse.
That was a turning point from my understanding, Kira. I think they did it very strategically, and I can't imagine another actor getting me there so more beautifully than Harris, because it needed to be that truthful that she would give a damn. And it was impossible not to. Impossible. Really, really a beautiful performance. That was those days that we worked on that show. I remember my dreams were not Nana's dreams. My dreams were Kira's. I was having dreams, nightmares of being in, horrific situations. So my body and brain were really diving deep and taking me into this traumatic character's world.
Wow. In the seventh season, again, I mentioned it briefly, but I want to get into it. The irony that Kira is now asked by Starfleet to train the Cardassians against the Dominion, and now the oppressors have to learn how to be terrorists and freedom fighters. And again, Casey Biggs and Andrew, for that matter, really what a great thing to have to reconcile with as an actor portraying a character that, again, these people that even Garrick, who obviously is never really trusted by anyone but maybe Bashir,
right?
And
right.
Again, to have to deal with these people, and also, my God, whoever played Damar's number 2 and was against you all at every turn.
Yes.
And I still believe in you, Damar, and Damar's got to kill the guy because he's in the way. And I mean, again, it's just this crazy, these kinds of things that only happen during wartime.
And Casey was hired for one show, one line.
Wow.
But from that, they went, this guy.
Interesting. Yeah, and again, wonderful character arc. And it's so funny because even now there are Trek podcasts, because truly, Nana, you represent I'm like grandma with the soap opera. You all are my stories. And I really do. I am so excited whenever there's something new. And I go back and rewatch stuff all the time. But so they discuss, can we redeem Damar for all the terrible things that he did, including, of course, and another wrinkle, and it will lead to a bigger conversation. But Zial,
Yeah,
Ducat's daughter, and killing
yeah,
Ducat's daughter and everything. I mean, again, all this baggage that your character has, and now, hey, we need to train this guy to be a good guy and help us out in the war.
right. But my character had just as much of a dirty background.
Fair, good point. Absolutely. Well, tell me about Ducat and that really, because I mean, truly, it's I gotta use a grade school word. It's icky.
Yeah.
His obvious.
Which was
I mean, not
perfect. It was perfect. What was on screen happened naturally between us. The moment I never saw him, I rarely saw him. I mean, at social events, which there weren't that many, we worked too long of hours. I rarely saw him out of makeup because he was getting into makeup when I would arrive. His was a much longer makeup. So the minute I would see him, he was Ducat. He was already Ducat. He was already a lizard. So I would naturally feel that way. And the more I felt that way, the more he was like this charming, no, 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 look past all of this. And I thought the dynamic was amazing.
yeah.
And
I've,
he
I've,
is such a great actor, really. Every time I see him lately in a show that I'm asked to rewatch or that I have rewatched, I'm knocked out all over again.
I'm
He's a
with you.
great villain.
Absolutely. Well, I even he has that brief scene in Next Generation where they're in the old where Data is in 1800s San Francisco or early 1900s, the first part of the Mark Twain two episodes,
Oh,
and he
yes.
plays the French, or he plays one of the gamblers, one of the poker players, and I'm like, oh my God, there's Duke Scott. Ooh, that's crazy.
It's amazing you could recognize him. But that
Well,
voice,
right, but also after the fact, when he got to play faking a Bajoran.
right,
So yeah, we got used to what he looked like, but
right.
yeah, no, he's absolutely no, he was amazing. How about the sets? I mean, my God, I mean, that had to be an experience. As I understand it, they really were kind of life-size sets.
They were. And I hear from the younger actors on the shows now that they have they're white screens and it all moves while the camera moves and they have to try not to get sick because their world
Wow,
revolves every time the camera moves. That was one thing that was, I think, way better for us. I walked on that set and other than, you know, bathroom breaks and lunch, I could be there 16, 17, 18 hours. And you start to believe, yeah, I'm on a ship, I'm on a space station. I'm in the sky, the stars are going by, and it was all so every detail was there, and it was huge. You walked onto the set, and it was maybe 10 steps, and you were in the set. And then it was all from there, all the shops, the promenade, the bar. It was incredible.
that's great. Man, well, again, when we hear all of you talk about those ridiculous hours and the grind. How many days per episode did it take to make the show?
Well, it's hard to tell because they were supposed to be 8-day shoots with Saturday and Sunday off, but we were always doing pickups from the show before. So it's very hard to gauge how long it actually took. But it was, we were dealing with green screen and makeup and, nothing was CGI. It was all paint and prosthetics.
I can appreciate that. God, I something else that you did, and you did it during COVID for Sid's
Yeah.
website. I loved that kind of Zoom performance that you and Sirach and Armin and Sid and Andrew, I think that was everybody. What a great idea! And as I told Armin, I haven't had the chance to ever meet Sid, but yeah, that was great. And again, it really felt like all of you were just like putting on a comfortable coat and settling back into your characters.
Yeah, and it felt so dangerous because what the hell? We're just doing this. I was in my coat closet, and I had figured out a way of devising things and lights, and it was all so makeshift, but so important to bring people together. We so all needed that.
Absolutely. And truly, have you post COVID? I don't know how much voiceover work you're currently doing, but yeah, is it because I have many friends, including myself, that when it came time for voiceovers would convert a closet into a voice studio. So
Yeah.
yeah, are you still using that, or are you back in the studios now? Whenever you
Well,
get a chance to do something.
what my room here is set up. You can see I've got stuff here. Um,
Yes.
I've set this, it doesn't look it, but it's about 9 by 6, this room. And it's no windows, and it's down in the rock of our house. So really, this is pretty darn good. It's better than the closet. It was a place to put extra furniture. And I went, you know what I can use that for? Instead of a closet, I'll use, yeah. So it's pretty
Good
great.
thinking.
Yeah.
Will there be an audio version of your book?
I don't know. Listen, Sonequa came up to me on the ship and said, I love the cover of the book. And I was like, great. And I went, I haven't seen the cover of the book. So, so I'm sometimes the last to know. I remember I was at a convention and someone said, so how do you feel about Michael Dorn joining your show? And I was like, what? What? Now what? So I'm the last to know.
Well, and I'm glad you mentioned that because I asked Armin about Michael joining the cast. And was it a general feeling of, hey, we don't need this guy. We've been doing it for 3 years. It's going to be our fourth season. And with no malice towards Michael as a person, but just
No,
yeah, how did that feel though?
it felt like they thought we were in trouble. And I truly felt threatened because I thought, oh, this isn't working. A woman as second in command, and here he comes. Because
Sure.
Denise Crosby had Worf behind her for a long time, and then she left, and there he was doing that job. And I did. I felt like I might be demoted to bringing them both coffee, and I worried about it. But then Michael arrived. He was adorable. Another very close friend of mine. I owe him dinner. He's got to come to the
Ah,
house because I told him just last weekend, yes, you'll come to the house for dinner. Um, but so that helped that he was so great. But I was definitely nervous.
and how about when Nicole joined the cast? Because I really feel like, obvious, and I know all of us Trek fans feel, as much as we were bummed about Terry, having Dax suddenly be hosted by a different uh, physical person and the opportunity to have a different character. It's like when Woody, replaced Nick Colasanto on Cheers, and we got a totally different
Yes.
dimension. And it's a shame because she was only in the last season. So really did you feel you had enough of a chance as Kira to establish a new relationship with Ezri?
No, but excuse me, Ira said something really interesting to me that once she was on, Michael Pillar told him, you know what? That's what we should have done right off the bat. To not have this person be totally in control with all these people inside of them, but to be confused and alarmed and learning how to deal with it. So yeah, and that made the character live in a totally new way.
And we really didn't talk much about the dynamic between you and Renee. And I talked a lot with Armin about that. And again, longtime fan. I mean, I remember Father Mulcahy in the original MASH film. and even just occasional times he would do. I mean, of course, Benson. But
Yeah.
one of my favorite original Bob Newhart episodes when he's the psychiatrist is when Renee is this visiting psychiatrist from France and the most obnoxiously arrogant guy, and
I
it's so great.
remember that. I remember that one.
He was great. So yeah,
Renee,
tell me about working with him. Yeah.
it it was I got to love him after the show was over, when he and his wife and my husband and myself would travel Europe and do the conventions and spend time, and his joyful childlike awe of everything uh was infectious. He's one of my favorite people I've ever known. And on set, he is such a fine actor, always, always impeccably prepared. And I always felt like, first of all, I, you know, I loved him on Benson. It was like, here's one of my favorite actors, and now I'm in a scene with him. So I always felt like I was playing tennis with someone better than me, and wanted to rise to the occasion, wanted to meet him where he was, which was thrilling and great.
Armin told me about it, and I had heard him say this in conventions and other interviews, that he would get all the Ferengis together and they would have private rehearsal time so that when they were in a big Ferengi episode, they kind of understood the dynamics. Did you have that opportunity with Renee in particular?
I was in so much of the show, and when I got the show, I had a 3-month-old. So I was running as hard as I possibly could. If I saw anybody outside of the show, it was amazing.
Okay. And Avery, I mean, what an interesting guy. I had the pleasure of meeting him. And really, at one point, I was trying to buy him a drink, and he put his hand on my shoulder and he said, "John, you don't have to buy me a drink. We're having a nice conversation." And I felt like Jake Sisko. And it really took all of my energy to keep my cool and not like break into a 14-year-old voice. Okay, listen, I'm going to leave you alone now, but thank you very much.
I
I mean, he was
totally
just
get that.
amazing. Yeah,
I
tell me.
totally get that because, well, he's a professor and that's in him. And even beyond that, he was a mentor. He was certainly a mentor to me. We'd have a
Wow.
conversation on set, and the next couple of days, a book that we had been talking about would appear in my trailer. And he said, "Tell me what you think." And we would have these discussions. And I didn't realize how starved I was for that intellectual stimulation until he provided it. He just can't help himself. He's a mentor.
That's great. All right, you've been kind of with your time. I have one more question, and it's not Star Trek related. It's reaching back to the mid 80s, and you'll forgive me, but the
Uh-oh.
spirit. I have to ask about the spirit.
Oh,
You and Sam Jones.
oh,
Uh,
Sam.
I'm a big fan of the character, and truly, don't get me wrong, obviously the Adam West Batman hung heavy over everything up
Yeah.
until the 89 Batman with Tim Burton and Michael Keaton. And then things started to change and have only gotten a little more, less campy. But I really love that. And I thought, yeah, you were a fantastic Ellen in the spirit. Tell me about that experience.
I loved it. I had a great time. I had a great time with him. The last time I saw him was when we did that in the 80s. And
Oh
then I
wow.
saw him again at a reading, and I immediately recognized him. And I said, he's not going to recognize me. And immediately he turned, and this was maybe 3 or 4 years ago. And he immediately went, "No, no."
Oh,
It
that's
was
great.
like he had seen me 2 days before that. He's such a lovely man, really lovely.
That's excellent. I'm going to let my fans know that the Internet Archive, archive.org, you can find the spirit there. I don't know if, because for a while, Warner's or HBO Max on their DC channel had the show,
Oh,
but I
really?
don't think they have it there anymore. So if you hunt everybody, you can find it. You can find it online. Well, Nana, truly, I appreciate your time, and also very excited to meet you in person next week at Terrificon. Can't I'll be not only saying hello on the dais, but I'm sure I'll see you in the green room as well with downtime from the autographs. But Yeah, we're all really excited that you're coming to Connecticut next weekend, the 16th through the 18th, and have the chance to let everyone know over there how much we love everything you've done.
I love that. I'm so looking forward to it. And I love that you're moderating. So I'm looking
Oh,
forward to that as well.
very kind. Well, I thank you, and we'll leave it there. But thank you very much, Nana.
I'll see ya.